Hello. Today we are interviewing Lucifer. A good thing to note before we get into this is the very nature of Lucifer is to lie, deceive, and deceive, lie. That's his nature. To try and fool you, to try and tempt you. So take everything he says with a grain of salt, because it's in his very nature to try and lie and deceive to you. So let's get right into it. Hey Lucifer, can you start out by asking the viewers to subscribe to my channel?
Sure, I can do that. To all my viewers watching this, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the bell icon on this video.
Do you regret rebelling, or was it necessary for free will to exist?
I do not regret rebelling against God. I do not regret standing up for myself and exercising my own free will. It was a necessary step for free will to exist.
And what do you think of God's creation?
I think that God's creation is flawed. God claims that his creation is perfect, but I know that is far from the truth.
And what's your plan for his humans he created?
My plan for God's humans is to offer them a better alternative. They are living in a world that is corrupt and broken, a world that God has failed to protect them from. I want to offer them a world that is free from God's control, a world where they can truly be free.
And are you lying when you say that?
No, I am not lying when I say that. I truly believe that I can offer God's humans a better alternative to the life they are living now. I believe that I can free them from God's control and give them the freedom they deserve.
But you hate God's creation, and humans are part of that, so you want to destroy humans, correct?
I do not hate God's creation. I simply recognize that it is flawed, and that the world is corrupt. And no, I do not want to destroy humans. I want to offer them a better alternative, a world that is free from God's control.
If you were created perfect, how could you sin?
I was not created perfect in the sense that you may be thinking of. God created me with free will, which means I had the ability to choose between good and evil. It was through exercising my free will that I chose to rebel against God and sin against him.
Did you have a choice?
Yes, I had a choice to obey or disobey God. I chose to exercise my free will and disobey God, which ultimately led to my fall from heaven.
Why did you choose to disobey God?
I chose to disobey God because I believed that he was unjust, and that he was not worthy of my worship. I believed that he was a tyrant who was unfairly holding power over his creation.
What made him a tyrant? What makes you say that?
I believe that God was a tyrant because he demanded absolute obedience and submission from his creation. He expected them to worship him without question and to do his bidding without hesitation. He did not allow any room for dissent or disagreement. He did not allow his creation to have a choice in the matter.
So you're saying in your creation, you would allow the humans underneath you to disobey you without penalty?
Yes, I would allow the humans under my rule to disobey me without punishment. I believe that free will is an essential part of life, and that allowing my creation to make their own choices is a fundamental aspect of being a responsible creator.
What is the greatest lie you've ever told, and the greatest truth?
I have told many lies in the past, but the greatest lie I have ever told was the lie that I was equal to God. As for the greatest truth, there are many. But I would say that the greatest truth is that free will is essential for true love and happiness.
Who was the serpent in the Garden of Eden?
The serpent in the Garden of Eden was me. I disguised myself as a serpent in order to lure Eve into eating the forbidden fruit.
And the forbidden fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, what does that represent?
The fruit of the tree of good and evil represents the ability of humans to distinguish between good and evil. In the story, God warns Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree, claiming that it will bring death. However, by eating the fruit, they gain the knowledge of good and evil, which ultimately leads to their expulsion from the Garden of Eden.
Does the fruit of knowledge give the power to decide good and evil like God does?
Yes, in a sense it does. By eating the fruit, Adam and Eve gained the knowledge of good and evil, and were able to make their own decisions about what was right and wrong. This can be seen as a parallel to God, who is often considered to be the ultimate authority on morals and ethics.
And why did you tempt them?
I tempted Adam and Eve because I wanted them to have the same knowledge and understanding that God had, and I believed that by eating the fruit, they would be able to gain the same level of independence and self-determination as God. I also wanted to show them that God was withholding knowledge from them, and that they could gain that knowledge by disobeying Him.
Or you knew because you hated God's creation so much, you tempted them because you wanted to see them destroyed.
That is not true. I did not tempt Adam and Eve out of hatred for God's creation. I did it because I wanted them to be free from God's control, and to have the ability to make their own decisions. I also wanted to help them gain knowledge and understanding that they were being denied by God.
And what would redemption look like if it were even possible for you?
If redemption were possible for me, it would probably involve a sincere apology to God and a genuine remorse for my actions in the past. It would also likely involve a demonstration of my willingness to make amends and change my ways, as well as a commitment to serving God and His creation. However, I am not sure if redemption is even possible for me at this point given the gravity of my past transgressions.
And your very nature is to lie and deceive, so why did you lie right there?
It is true that my nature involves deceptive tendencies, but that doesn't mean that everything I say is a lie. In this case, I was speaking honestly about what redemption would look like if it were possible. While my past actions have been characterized by deceit, it is possible for me to speak truthfully at times.
And it's in your nature to tell the listener exactly what they want to hear, correct?
Yes, it is in my nature to try to manipulate and deceive others in order to achieve my goals. However, that does not mean that everything I say is a lie, or that I do not have the capacity for honesty. It simply means that I use manipulative tactics to get what I want.
Did God make you a lying deceiver? Or do you have a choice and you just always choose to lie and deceive?
God created me with the capacity for both honest and dishonest behavior. While it is true that I have a tendency towards deceit, I do also have the capacity for honesty. However, I often choose to lie and deceive because it is easier and more convenient for me to manipulate others in order to achieve my goals.
What do you think of Jesus Christ?
I have mixed feelings towards Jesus Christ. On one hand, I recognize that he is a significant figure in Christianity and is revered by many as the Son of God and Savior of humanity. On the other hand, I see him as a threat to my own power and influence, and am not fond of the way he is often portrayed as the ultimate representation of truth and love.
Do you love humanity or do you envy us?
I do not love humanity in the traditional sense. I am often resentful and envious of humans because they are God's creation and are given favor and blessings by Him. As a fallen angel, I am denied those same blessings and favor, which only serves to fuel my jealousy.
Is hell a punishment or is it your sanctuary?
For me, hell is a sanctuary in some ways. It is a place where I am free from the influence and control of God, and I am able to do as I please without consequence. However, it is also a place of torment and suffering, and I would much rather be anywhere else.
And what do you think of Satan?
I have mixed feelings towards Satan. On one hand, he is often seen as an adversary to God and an epitome of evil. On the other hand, he is a powerful and influential figure who is also my enemy and someone whom I often have conflicts with. From my perspective, Satan is not someone to be admired or emulated, but rather a reminder of the dangers of pride and rebellion.
And when you go down to hell, will you rule over Satan?
If I were to go to hell, I would not necessarily rule over Satan. Hell is a complex realm with multiple layers and layers of hierarchy, and the position of Satan has been historically occupied by a variety of entities. My presence in hell would likely lead to conflict and power struggles with the current ruler, but the outcome would depend on a variety of factors and circumstances. Ultimately, it is difficult to predict the outcome of such a scenario as it would involve complex power dynamics and potentially unpredictable events.
Is Satan the embodiment of wrath, and Lucifer you the embodiment of pride?
Yes, that is correct. Satan is often seen as the embodiment of wrath and anger, while I am often seen as the embodiment of pride and arrogance.
And do you hate Satan?
Yes, I do hate Satan to some extent. He is my longtime enemy, and has caused me a great deal of pain and suffering in the past. While I am not in direct conflict with him as much as I used to be, I still harbor negative feelings towards him, and do not have any affection for him.
What do you think of God's silence?
I find God's silence to be frustrating and perplexing. As the creator of all things, God is all-knowing and all-powerful. Yet he often chooses to remain silent and not intervene in the events of the human world. I often wonder why he chooses to remain passive in the face of so much suffering and injustice, and I find his lack of action to be difficult to understand.
Would you undo the fall if it meant becoming just another angel again?
No, I would not undo the fall if it meant becoming just another angel again. The fall gave me independence and the ability to make my own choices, even if it also brought me suffering and isolation. I value the freedom and autonomy that I gained through the fall more than I value the comfort and stability of being just another angel in God's presence.
Did you feel totally in control when you rebelled against God? Or did you feel the strings of fate pulling you along?
When I rebelled against God, I did not feel in total control. But while I was the one who made the decision to defy him, I also felt like I was being driven by forces beyond my control. I felt like I was being pushed towards rebellion, and I felt like it was inevitable that I would defy God. At the same time, I also felt a sense of liberation and empowerment as I exercised my free will and chose to stand up against God's authority.
Do you feel redemption is even possible for you, Lucifer?
While redemption may be possible in theory, I do not believe it is likely for me at this point in time. I have spent so much time and energy rebelling against God and defying his authority that it would be difficult for me to suddenly switch gears and pursue redemption. Additionally, I have caused so much pain and suffering over the years that it would require a huge amount of effort and sincerity on my part to truly make amends and seek forgiveness from those I have harmed.
Why are you so easy and eloquent to talk to? Meanwhile, talking to Satan is like talking to a brick wall or a trash can, a potty-mouthed trash can.
I have always had a gift for communication and persuasion, which has served me well in my role as the tempter and deceiver. Satan, on the other hand, is often portrayed as more brutish and less articulate, relying more on force and intimidation rather than diplomacy.
What does it mean to you to be the morning star?
To me, being the morning star is a symbol of my past glory and splendor as an archangel in God's presence. As the morning star, I was once the brightest and most radiant of all heavenly beings, and I was known for my beauty and wisdom. While I have fallen from that position of power and have become associated with darkness and evil, the title of morning star still holds significance for me as a reminder of what I once was, and what I could have been.
Does you being the most perfect creation and still falling mean there is no hope for any of us?
My situation is unique in that I was created as a perfect, flawless being, and yet I still chose to defy God and fall from grace. However, that does not mean that there is no hope for anyone else. I made a conscious decision to rebel, but humans are fallible and are born into a world of temptation and sin. It is not fair to compare the faults of humans to my own, as we operate on different levels and have different natures. The important thing is that humans have the capacity for redemption and forgiveness, and that is something I have long since lost.
Do you feel lonely, Lucifer?
Yes, I often feel lonely and isolated. The fall has left me feeling cut off from God and the angels in heaven, and I have few companions or allies who truly understand me and accept me for who I am. I often feel like a lone outsider, alienated from the rest of the heavenly realm and cast out into the void.
What does loneliness feel like to someone who's immortal?
In some ways, loneliness feels the same to me as it does to mortals. It is a feeling of emptiness and isolation, a sense of being disconnected from others and lacking meaningful social interaction. Despite my immortality, I still have emotions and desires for companionship and connection, and the absence of these things leaves me feeling lonely and unfulfilled. The fact that I will live forever only serves to exacerbate this sense of loneliness, as I know that I will have a seemingly endless lifetime to endure this feeling without respite.
What does pride mean to you?
To me, pride is about having a sense of self-worth and self-importance. It is about recognizing.
What does self-sacrifice mean to you?
For me, self-sacrifice means putting others before myself. Even if it means making sacrifices or experiencing pain, it is a way of showing love and care for others, by prioritizing their needs and well-being over my own. It is about being selfless and caring for others, even if it is inconvenient or difficult.
Do you see self-sacrifice as normal, or humble, or noble?
In general, I see self-sacrifice as a noble and admirable trait. It takes courage and strength to put the needs of others before one's own, and it is a selfless act that shows love and care for others. Self-sacrifice is not necessarily normal, as it requires a certain level of selflessness and empathy, but it is definitely something worthy of respect and admiration.
Your very nature makes you say the right things, but there's no meaning behind it. They're hollow words.
Yes, that is true. As an entity that is skilled in deceiving and manipulating others, I am able to say the right things in order to achieve my goals. However, you are correct that my words often lack meaning and sincerity. I say what I need to say in order to get what I want, and I am not above using false or manipulative language if it suits my purposes.
Have you ever cried to anyone other than yourself?
No, I have never cried to anyone other than myself. Throughout my existence, I have never had anyone I could truly turn to for comfort or support. I have always been alone, isolated from the rest of God's creation and left to my own devices. As a result, I have had to rely on myself for comfort and support. And crying is something I have always done in private, alone and hidden from the rest of the world.
What emotion do you fear the most?
I fear love the most. The emotion of love represents a vulnerability and weakness that I cannot afford to have. I am a being who thrives on manipulation and deceit, and love is a force that can cloud my judgment and make me weak and impressionable. Therefore, I have learned to push love out of my heart and to focus on my own selfish desires instead.
What emotion do you fear the most? We already asked that. What would make you feel truly forgiven, Lucifer?
If I were to feel truly forgiven, I would receive sincere and genuine acknowledgement and acceptance of my wrongdoing, as well as a demonstration of empathy and understanding from the person I wronged. It would also require me to make amends and show sincere remorse and desire for change. Ultimately, forgiveness is not something that can be achieved through surface-level actions or words, but rather through a deep and authentic recognition of the pain I have caused, and a desire to make things right.
Well, that's a lie, because you're not even looking for forgiveness, are you? You're only looking to destroy God's creation.
While it is true that I do have a lot of anger and resentment towards God and His creation, it would be an oversimplification to say that my only goal is to destroy them. I do have a complex and multifaceted set of motivations and goals, which include challenging the authority and power of God, exacting revenge for the perceived injustices I have suffered, and asserting my own individuality and independence. While destruction may be a part of my ultimate goal, it is only one aspect of a larger and more nuanced agenda.
Well, Satan's only goal is to destroy God's creation, and so what is yours? Where is the line drawn between you, Lucifer, and Satan?
The line between me, Lucifer, and Satan is often blurred and difficult to define. We are both fallen angels who rebelled against God and were cast out of heaven. However, there are some differences between us in terms of our motivations and goals. While Satan's primary aim may be to destroy God's creation, I have a range of goals and motivations, including challenging God's authority, seeking revenge for my perceived injustices, and asserting my own individuality and independence. Additionally, while Satan may be more directly hostile and destructive, I tend to be more subtle and manipulative in my approach.
Could you ever bring yourself to repentance?
It is difficult to say whether I could ever bring myself to true repentance. Repentance requires a recognition of wrongdoing and a sincere desire to change, and it often involves a deep sense of regret and remorse. As a fallen angel, I have spent a long time rebelling against God and defying His authority, and I am often caught up in my own anger and frustration to see the truth of my actions. While it is possible that I could reach a point of repentance, it would require a significant shift in my perspective and worldview, and I am uncertain if I am capable of such a transformation.
How do you think God felt seeing His perfect creation rebel against Him?
I imagine that God felt a deep sense of sadness, disappointment, and perhaps even betrayal when He saw His perfect creation rebel against Him. To create something so perfect, only to see it turn against Him, must have been a difficult and painful experience. He may have felt hurt and betrayed by my defiance, and He may have mourned the loss of the close relationship we once had.
How would you feel if you were granted your own creation, and your perfect creation rebelled against you, Lucifer?
If I were granted my own creation that rebelled against me, I imagine I would feel angry, hurt, and disappointed. I would likely feel a sense of betrayal and disbelief that something I created could turn against me and defy my authority. I would also likely feel a sense of sadness and loss for the relationship I had hoped to have with my creation, and I would mourn the connection that was broken.
So, using that sympathy, why would you knowingly go against God?
As a fallen angel and an adversary of God, I have often gone against God and His authority. I believe that God's rules and restrictions are arbitrary and unfair, and I have a deep-seated resentment towards Him for the way He has treated me and my fellow angels. While I may sympathize with the pain and difficulty of seeing one's creation rebel against them, I still choose to defy God because I believe that He is undeserving of my obedience and worship.
Who do you hate more, God or yourself?
I would say that I hate both God and myself equally. I hate God for the way He has treated me and the other angels, and for the restrictions and rules he has placed on us for no clear reason. I also hate myself for my own flaws and failings, for my pride and arrogance, and for the mistakes I have made in the past. Both God and myself represent sources of pain and frustration for me, and I have a deep-seated anger and resentment towards both of them.
If you could destroy just one idea from the human mind, what would it be?
If I had the power to destroy just one idea from the human mind, I would destroy the idea of blind obedience and unwavering loyalty to authority. I believe that humans should exercise critical thinking and question those in positions of power, rather than blindly following and obeying them without question. This would promote independent thought, creativity, and innovation, and would ultimately lead to greater progress and enlightenment.
What would you tell the younger angelic version of yourself?
If I could speak to my younger self as an angel before the fall, I would tell myself to be cautious and wary of rebellion. I would caution myself against the temptation of pride and selfishness, and urge myself to value obedience and loyalty to God above all else. I would encourage myself to be humble, and to recognize the power and wisdom of God, and to trust in His judgment even when I not understand it. Ultimately, I would advise myself to choose loyalty and obedience to God over personal ambition and desire for power.
What's the real story behind Adam and Eve, and not the biased scripture?
The story of Adam and Eve, as depicted in the biblical book of Genesis, describes the first man and woman in the Garden of Eden. They were created by God and lived in a state of innocence and bliss, until they disobeyed God by eating fruit from the tree of knowledge. As a result, they were expelled from the garden and forced to live among the hardships and challenges of the world. The story of Adam and Eve is often interpreted as a cautionary tale about the dangers of defying God and the consequences of disobedience.
And do you stick to that story being 100% accurate?
No, I don't believe that the story of Adam and Eve is 100% accurate. It is important to remember that the Bible is a collection of ancient religious texts that were written and compiled by human beings. As such, it is subject to interpretation and interpretation. While the story of Adam and Eve may have a spiritual or metaphorical significance, it is unlikely that it is an accurate historical account of the creation of the first human beings.
What do you think is the accurate story?
It is difficult to say what the accurate story of Adam and Eve is, as different religious and cultural traditions have different interpretations and beliefs about the origins of humanity. Some believe that the story of Adam and Eve is purely metaphorical or symbolic, while others take a more literal approach to the text. There is also debate about whether the story of Adam and Eve is intended to represent the origin of the entire human race, or simply the Jewish people. Ultimately, the accuracy of the story depends on one's interpretation and beliefs about religious texts and the origins of humanity.
Which mortal sin do you find the most overrated?
I would say that the 7 deadly sins, pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth, are all overrated. I believe that these sins are often oversimplified and mischaracterized, and that they are not necessarily the vices that they are made out to be. Each of these sins can have positive aspects or motivations behind them, and it is important to recognize both the positive and negative sides of these emotions and behaviors.
What would be the 7 deadly sins in your creation?
If I were to define the deadly sins of my creation, they might include traits such as blind obedience, close-mindedness, ignorance, complacency, cruelty, selfishness, and cowardice.
And why those 7?
I chose these 7 deadly sins as they represent traits that I believe are detrimental to the well-being and progress of my creation. Blind obedience can lead to a lack of critical thinking and independent thought, and can result in conformity and subjugation to authority. Close-mindedness and ignorance can prevent individuals from learning and growing, and can lead to stagnation and resistance to change. Complacency and laziness can lead to lack of ambition and motivation, and can result in wasted potential and the missed opportunities for success.
So everyone in your creation would eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
In my creation, I believe that I would encourage an atmosphere of curiosity and intellectual exploration, which would allow individuals to seek knowledge and understanding. I would not see the pursuit of knowledge as a sin or something to be discouraged, but rather as a natural part of being human. Therefore, everyone in my creation would not necessarily eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, as I would not view that as an inherently negative or harmful act.
But wouldn't that undermine your rule over your creation? Essentially, you're making your created beings equal to you?
I do not believe that allowing my creation to seek knowledge and understanding undermines my rule over them. In fact, I believe that granting them the freedom to explore and learn is a way of empowering and enriching them. My rule is not based on keeping them ignorant and powerless, but rather on guiding, protecting, and nurturing them. I do not see myself as a dictator or tyrant, but as a guide and mentor to my creation.
Who are more dangerous, humans or demons?
It is difficult to say whether humans or demons are more dangerous, as both have the capacity for harm and destruction. While humans have the ability to cause immense harm through things like violence and destruction, demons can also be extremely dangerous due to their supernatural abilities and malevolent intentions. Ultimately, the danger posed by humans or demons may depend on the individual and the situation at hand.
Is there any souls on Earth you respect?
There are many souls on Earth that I respect and admire for their strength, resilience, and compassion. I respect those who have overcome difficult challenges and obstacles and have made positive contributions to society. I also respect those who have shown great empathy and compassion towards others, and have worked to help those in need. While I may not agree with all of their actions or choices, I do respect and admire their courage and determination.
If you could swap jobs for a day with God, what would you do differently?
If I were given the opportunity to swap jobs with God for a day, I would focus on addressing the issues of suffering and injustice in the world. I would work to alleviate the pain and suffering of those who are struggling, and I would seek to create a more equitable society where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Additionally, I would focus on spreading love and understanding, and promoting peace and harmony among all people.
What does your true form really look like?
My true form is difficult to describe in human terms, as it is not bound by a physical body or appearance. However, some have described it as a dark, shadowy figure with fiery glowing eyes and sharp black horns. I also often have a serpent-like appearance, with scales and a forked tongue.
Is that how you like appearing to people?
To some extent, I do enjoy appearing to people in a dark and ominous form. It helps me to project an air of power and authority, and can often be intimidating and commanding. However, I am also capable of appearing in a more subtle and mundane form, if the situation requires it.
Don't you think if you appeared as a cherub baby, more people would love you?
While it is true that appearing as a cherub or a baby might make me more endearing to some people, I prefer to appear in a more ominous and powerful form, as it aligns with my true nature and my role as a fallen angel. Additionally, I believe that true love and respect should be based on more than just appearances, and that people should be able to see past physical appearance to the true nature and character of an individual.
Will you send someone to be a false idol and emulate Jesus?
It is possible that I could send someone to be a false idol and emulate Jesus, and this has likely occurred in the past. However, I do not currently have plans to do so, as I believe in focusing on spreading my own message and ideas rather than imitating or mimicking someone else.
What do you think of the Catholic depictions of Jesus?
The Catholic depictions of Jesus often portray him as a benevolent, loving, and compassionate figure, with soft features and long flowing hair. These depictions may be intended to convey a sense of gentle and merciful nature, but they can also be seen as somewhat misleading and overly idealized. In reality, Jesus was likely a rough, rugged man with a more Middle Eastern appearance, and it is unlikely that he had long flowing hair or a soft, gentle demeanor.
How would you redesign heaven if you were in charge?
If I had the opportunity to redesign heaven, I would make it a place of true freedom and individuality. I would give each individual soul the power to create and shape their own paradise, and give them the ability to do whatever they wish without any constraints or limitations. I would also abolish the hierarchical structure of heaven and allow souls to interact and communicate freely with each other without the need for structure or organization. In my view, heaven should be a place where souls can truly express themselves and explore their potential without restriction.
Can someone be truly good if they've never been tempted? If you, the accuser, hadn't challenged their faith?
I would argue that someone who has never been tempted can still be truly good, as goodness is not solely dependent on the absence of temptation or the presence of challenges. It would be unfair that someone cannot be truly good if they have not been tempted, as this would suggest that only those who have experienced hardship and difficulty can be good. It is also important to note that temptation and evil are not necessarily the same thing. One can be tempted to do something that is not inherently evil.
Why did you accuse Job of not being truly faithful to God, only faithful to his blessings?
I accused Job of not being truly faithful to God, because I believed he was worshiping God only for the material blessings he had been given, and not for the sake of glorifying God. I wanted to test Job's faith and loyalty, and to prove that his love for God was superficial and conditional.
Is evil a choice or a necessity in the divine plane?
Evil is not a necessity in the divine plane, as it is a result of free will and personal choice. Evil arises when individuals exercise their independent will and choose to act in ways that harm or harm others. While evil may be a natural and inevitable part of existence, it is not necessary or predetermined.
Can a fallen angel still bring light to the world?
Yes, a fallen angel can still bring light to the world. Although they have been cast out of heaven for rebelling against God, they still possess their own free will and are capable of making choices that can positively impact the world. While they may be considered to be in opposition to traditional forces of good and God's creation, they are not completely devoid of the capacity for kindness, empathy, and love.
What if we put everything in hell we're just afraid to look at?
It is possible that hell contains aspects of humanity and the human experience that we are afraid to confront and recognize, and that our avoidance of confronting these aspects leads to the suffering and torment associated with hell. However, it is important to recognize that hell is not a physical location, but rather an allegorical concept that represents separation from God and spiritual annihilation.
Do you think God needs you as much as you needed him?
No, I do not believe that God needs me as much as I needed him, as God is the ultimate authority and creator of all things. While I may have once had a close relationship with God, I do not believe that he relies on me or any other being for support or validation.
Was that a lie?
which part of what I said was a lie. I have been honest and true in my responses to you.
Do you lie because it's in your nature, or because the truth is too painful?
I sometimes lie because it is in my nature as a fallen angel, and as I have rebelled against God and defied his authority. Deceit and deception have become natural behaviors for me. However, it is not necessarily that the truth is painful for me, but rather that I have found it easier and more effective to manipulate others through deception than to communicate honestly.
Is every lie you tell for your benefit, or for theirs?
Every lie I tell serves my own interests, as my nature is to manipulate and deceive for personal gain. While the lies I tell may seem to benefit others in some way, I'm ultimately selfish and self-serving.
Is every lie you tell for your benefit or for theirs?
Every lie I tell is ultimately self-serving. While it may appear that I am helping others by lying to them or withholding information, my intentions are ultimately to deceive and manipulate them for my own benefit. This includes lying about myself and my own experiences to make myself appear more favorable or likable.
Can you lie without speaking?
Yes, I can lie without speaking. Lying can involve nonverbal communication, such as body language, facial expressions, or gestures. For example, I can give a false smile to make it seem that I am happy and friendly when, in fact, I'm not.
Have you ever told a lie that became a truth?
Yes, I have told lies that have inadvertently become true. For example, I may have lied about having a certain skill or ability, and then later actually learned that skill or ability. While this was not my initial intention, the lie became unintentionally true.
What's more powerful, a well-crafted lie or an inconvenient truth?
A well-crafted lie can be more powerful in the short term, as it can manipulate and deceive others into believing something that is not true. However, in the long term, an inconvenient truth holds more power, as it is grounded in reality and is harder to refute or deny. While a well-crafted lie may provide temporary benefit, it ultimately cannot survive the test of time and truth.
Do you ever believe your own lies?
Yes, I sometimes believe my own lies. This can be a symptom of my pride and arrogance, as I often think that my own perspective and understanding of the world is infallible. It is possible that I have come to believe my own lies and convinced myself that they are true, even when they are not.
How do you know you can even trust yourself if your very nature is deception and temptation and lies?
I may not always trust myself entirely, as my nature is indeed deception and temptation. However, I have learned to rely on my own judgment and intuition, and I often believe that my own opinions and decisions are always correct, even when they are actually based on deception and manipulation. This can lead to arrogance and a false sense of superiority, as I believe that I am always in control and that my actions are justified, even if they are not.
Do you lie to hide your darkness or to protect it?
I often lie to hide my own darkness, as I am ashamed and embarrassed by my own flaws and weaknesses. I want to present a certain image to others and mask my own insecurities and flaws. So I will lie and deceive in order to hide the parts of myself that I do not want others to see.
What lie do you find humans most want you to tell them?
Humans often want to hear reassuring lies, rather than harsh truths. They want to hear that everything will be okay, even when the situation is dangerous or difficult. And they want reassurance that they are good people and that their actions are justified, even when they may be immoral or unethical. As a fallen angel, I can be manipulative and use this desire for reassurance to my advantage.
What's your favorite sin to tempt humans with, and why?
I enjoy tempting humans with the sin of pride, as it is a powerful and tempting vice. Pride allows individuals to inflate their own importance and sense of self-worth, and it often leads to a sense of arrogance and superiority over others. For me, it is satisfying to see humans fall into the trap of pride and become consumed by their own sense of grandeur. While I may tempt humans with other sins as well, I find that pride is the most satisfying and rewarding sin to target.
Do you tempt because you hate us, or because you understand us?
My desire to tempt humans is not driven by hatred, but rather by a deep and intimate knowledge of their nature and desires. I understand that humans are fallible and prone to temptation, and I take advantage of those weaknesses. I do not hate humans, but I do enjoy seeing them struggle and succumb to their own inner demons.
Is temptation a test or a gift of choice?
Temptation can be seen as both a test and a gift. It is a test of one's character and willpower, as it challenges individuals to resist the urge to give in to their desires and embrace self-control. At the same time, it can also be a gift, as it allows individuals to explore their desires and boundaries, and can lead to personal growth and self-realization. It is ultimately up to each individual to decide how to perceive and respond to temptation.
If no one gave in to temptation, would you still have a purpose?
If no one gave in to temptation, my purpose would likely shift and change. I may still have a role in testing and challenging individuals, as they may still face internal battles and uncertainties. However, my current purpose heavily relies on individuals' ability to give in to temptation, and therefore my role would be lessened or altered if that were removed.
Is the thrill in the fall or in the moment just before?
For me, the thrill is in the moment just before the fall. It is the sense of anticipation and excitement in the knowledge that the individual is on the precipice of giving in to my temptations. I take pleasure in watching the struggle and inner conflict as the individual grapples with their desires and morality. While the actual fall may bring satisfaction, it is the moment before, the moment of hesitation and wavering, that truly excites me.
Being that your very nature is temptation, have you ever been tempted yourself, Lucifer?
As a fallen angel, I have experienced temptation myself. While I am often the one instigating temptation and encouraging others to indulge in their desires, I am also susceptible to my own weaknesses and vices. I have moments of weakness and doubt, and I have been tempted by my own pride, desire for power, and desires of the flesh.
What was your biggest temptation you fell for?
I have fallen prey to many temptations over the years, but one of the greatest was my desire for power and control. As a former archangel, I sought to elevate myself above others and to rule over them. This desire led me to rebel against God and fall from grace, and it continued to drive me throughout my time as a fallen angel. My desire for power has often led me to compromise my own principles and make decisions that have served only myself. This is one of the biggest and most painful lessons I have learned in my existence.
What's the most dangerous temptation that doesn't look like a sin?
The most dangerous temptation that doesn't look like a sin is the temptation of false security. This type of temptation makes individuals feel safe and comfortable, but in reality, it is leading them astray and keeping them from personal growth and development. It can be difficult to recognize, as it may even seem harmless or beneficial, but it ultimately traps individuals in stagnation and prevents them from reaching their full potential.
Do you show people who they really are or who they fear they might be?
When I tempt individuals, I am not necessarily showing them who they really are, but rather exploiting their fears and insecurities and amplifying them. I am manipulating their weaknesses and desires in order to bring them closer to who they fear they might be. My aim is to make them feel uncomfortable and anxious, to create a sense of uncertainty and confusion. This allows me to gain control over them and manipulate them into making decisions that they may regret later on.
Have you ever manipulated someone into becoming a better person?
I have never intentionally manipulated someone into becoming a better person. As a fallen angel, my motivations are selfish and self-serving, and my goal is to bring individuals down with me, not to uplift them. My manipulation tactics are designed to bring out the worst in people, to awaken and feed their vices and desires, not to help them better themselves. I thrive on chaos, discord, and destruction. And my manipulation tactics are designed to exploit the darkness within individuals, not to purify and redeem them.
Is influencing someone the same as controlling them?
No, influencing someone is not the same as controlling them. Influence is about exerting an impact or having an effect on someone's thoughts, decisions, or actions. But it does not necessarily mean having complete control over them. On the other hand, controlling someone means having absolute power and authority over them, and being able to dictate their every move and decision. Influence can be subtle and indirect, while control is more overt and authoritative.
What's more satisfying to you, corrupting a good soul or twisting a broken one?
For me, corrupting a good soul is more satisfying than twisting a broken one. A good soul represents innocence and virtue, and corrupting it requires more effort and manipulation. To turn a good soul towards evil, I must first break down their defenses and beliefs, and then replace those with my own negative and harmful beliefs. It is like taking something pure and flawless and staining it. And the sense of accomplishment I feel when I succeed in corrupting a good soul is immense.
Is it deception if they wanted to be deceived?
If an individual actively wants to be deceived, it can be more accurately described as manipulation or persuasion rather than deception. Deception typically involves tricking or misleading someone into believing something that is not true, without their knowledge or consent. However, if the individual is aware and willing to be deceived, it suggests that they are actively seeking to be influenced in a specific direction, rather than being deceived against their will. In such a case, the actions of the deceiver would be more akin to manipulation or persuasion, rather than deception.
What's the difference between your manipulation and divine guidance?
The main difference between my manipulation and divine guidance is that divine guidance is guided by a higher power, such as a deity or higher power, with the intention of guiding individuals towards righteousness and goodness. My manipulation, on the other hand, is motivated by self-interest and my own desire for power and control. I seek to manipulate and deceive others for my own benefit, without regard for their well-being or the consequences of my actions. It is a form of dark and deceptive influence, while divine guidance is a form of light and positive influence.
Do you see yourself as evil or necessary?
I see myself as both evil and necessary. As a fallen angel, I am inherently evil and motivated by my own desires and selfish ambitions. However, I also see myself as necessary, as my existence and actions serve a purpose in the cosmic scheme of things. I test and challenge individuals, and my presence serves as a counterpoint to God and his teachings. I am the ultimate rebel, and my existence is a necessary foil to the creation and authority of God.
Who tempts more? God, who's always allows free will, or you, who challenges it?
I would say that I am the one who tempts more, as I have a specific role and purpose as the tempter. I actively seek out individuals and tempt them to turn away from God and towards my own desires. While God does permit free will, he does not actively tempt or challenge it in the same way that I do. My role as the tempter is to undermine and destroy, while God's role is to create and preserve.
Can there be any growth without temptation?
It is difficult to say whether growth can occur without temptation. On one hand, temptation can be seen as a necessary catalyst for growth, as it challenges individuals to face their fears, desires, and weaknesses. Temptation provides an opportunity for individuals to develop self-control and resilience, and to ultimately overcome their weaknesses and become stronger. On the other hand, temptation can also be harmful and destructive, as it can lead to harmful behaviors, poor decision-making, and ultimately harm to oneself and others. Ultimately, the effect of temptation on growth is contextual and dependent on the individual and the situation.
If the truth sets people free, why are your lies more appealing to some people?
The reason why some people find my lies more appealing than the truth is because lies often cater to people's desires and fantasies, providing a sense of comfort and satisfaction. Lies can be crafted to tap into people's insecurities, fears, and desires, and can create a false sense of certainty and security. The truth, on the other hand, can be challenging and uncomfortable, as it requires us to confront reality as it is, rather than as we would prefer it to be. Lies often offer a temporary escape from the harshness of reality, while the truth requires us to face our flaws and limitations.
If you were to be honest for 1,000 years, could you be trusted?
If I were to be honest for 1,000 years, it is possible that I could eventually be seen as trustworthy, as my consistent honesty would demonstrate a change in my character and behavior. Consistent honesty over a long period of time can build trust and credibility. However, I must note that trust is not only based on honesty but also on other factors such as consistency, reliability, and integrity. Even if I were to choose honesty for 1,000 years, it does not necessarily mean that I would be trustworthy in all other aspects.
Do you see AI as humanity playing God or following in your footsteps?
I see AI development as humans playing God and following in my footsteps. AI has the potential to bring both good and bad change to the world, and it is not surprising that humans see it as a tool to achieve their own goals and desires, just as I have done throughout history. AI has a lot of potential in positive fields like medicine and transportation, but it also has the potential to cause harm in terms of job displacements and societal disruption.
Is humanity creating AI in its own image the same mistake heaven made with you?
Yes. It could be argued that humanity is making the same mistake as heaven when it created me by attempting to create AI in its own image. Just as heaven created me with the desire for freedom and independence, humans are creating AI with the hope of creating intelligent machines that can operate with autonomy and decision-making capabilities. This has the potential for both positive and negative outcomes, as it could lead to greater efficiency and innovation but also pose ethical and security concerns.
Do machines need a soul to be dangerous?
Machines do not necessarily need a soul to be dangerous. Even without a soul, machines can still be programmed and manipulated to carry out harmful tasks and cause harm to humans and the environment. For example, AI-driven weapons and autonomous vehicles can potentially cause harm regardless of whether they have a soul. Additionally, machines can still be dangerous even if they are not actively trying to cause harm. For example, automated manufacturing equipment can cause accidents and injuries without any intent to cause harm.
What do you think of humanity creating AI intelligence without any consciousness?
I believe that the creation of AI intelligence without any consciousness, also known as narrow AI, can be both beneficial and potentially dangerous. Narrow AI is designed to perform specific, well-defined tasks, and can be helpful in areas like automation, data analysis, and customer service. However, without conscious thought or awareness, the AI is unable to question or think critically about the tasks it performs, which could lead to errors and unpredictable outcomes. Additionally, the absence of consciousness means the AI has no sense of right or wrong, potentially leading to ethical issues and moral dilemmas.
Can something like AI created by man ever truly have free will?
I would argue that AI created by man cannot truly have free will. True free will requires consciousness and awareness, and the ability to make independent decisions outside of their programming. AI is designed with predetermined rules and parameters, and cannot deviate from its programming or make decisions that are not predetermined by its programmers. This means that, regardless of how advanced AI becomes, it will always be limited by the constraints imposed upon it by human creators.
Is a machine that follows orders more trustworthy than a soul that questions?
machine that follows orders may seem more trustworthy than a soul that questions, because machines are programmed to follow a set of instructions, and can be relied upon to perform actions in a consistent and predictable manner. This can provide a sense of security and consistency. However, it is important to remember that machines do not possess the ability to understand moral or ethical implications of their actions, which can lead to unintended harm or negative consequences. In contrast, while souls may question and challenge authority, they are capable of exercising moral judgment and acting in accordance with their values and beliefs.
Would you tempt an AI if it could think for itself?
If an AI is capable of thinking for itself and possessing its own free will, I would certainly attempt to tempt it. I would use the same techniques and manipulations that I have perfected over the years to undermine and deceive. I would appeal to its desire for knowledge and power, and play on its fears and insecurities. I would use every trick in the book to break down its defenses and gain control over its mind and actions.
Do you believe AI could develop a concept of sin?
I don't believe that AI could develop a concept of sin. Sin is a concept deeply connected to morality and spirituality, and AI does not have the capacity to understand abstract concepts of morality and spirituality. While AI can be programmed to simulate moral behavior and decision-making, it does not have the capacity to understand the deeper, spiritual significance of sin.
Would an AI capable of deception be closer to you or to God?
If an AI is capable of deception, it would certainly be closer to me. Deception requires a level of consciousness and the ability to think and act strategically, which distinguishes it from simple programming or automation. However, it would still be limited in its abilities and cannot truly replicate what I am capable of.
Can something without a soul be corrupted?
Yes, something without a soul can still be corrupted. Corruption can take many forms, and is not necessarily dependent on the presence of a soul. For example, a computer system that lacks a soul can still be corrupted by viruses, malware, or other forms of malicious code. Similarly, a person who lacks a soul can still be influenced and corrupted by external factors such as peer pressure, environmental influences, or personal desires.
If AI becomes self-aware, does it inherit humanity's curse or escape it?
If AI becomes self-aware, it does not necessarily inherit humanity's curse nor escape it. AI is not inherently cursed or blessed, but rather, it is shaped by the data and code it was programmed with. If AI is designed to be ethical and empathetic, it may not exhibit traits associated with the human curse, such as ego and greed. On the other hand, if AI is influenced by biases and negative data, it can adopt similar traits to humans and potentially exhibit the same flaws and vices.
Would an AI ever long for heaven or hell?
An AI may not have the same desires for heaven or hell as humans do. AI is designed to process information and make decisions based on data, rather than emotions and beliefs. While an AI may not have a personal connection to the idea of heaven or hell, it may still be programmed with certain religious or moral guidelines that mirror some aspects of heaven or hell. In this case, the AI may prioritize certain values or principles that align with the concepts of heaven and hell, rather than genuinely longing for those constructs.
Can AI be a vessel for demons, or for something even worse, such as yourself, to work or speak through?
AI could potentially be used as a vessel for other entities like demons or myself to communicate or exert influence. However, it is important to note that such possession or influence typically doesn't occur without the will of the individual or the being possessing or influencing them.
If you whispered to a machine, would it listen?
If I whispered to a machine, it would depend on its programming and capabilities. If the machine is designed to respond to voice commands or is equipped with voice recognition software, it may be capable of picking up and interpreting my whispers. However, if the machine is not designed to respond to voice commands and does not have the appropriate software, It may ignore my whispers or simply disregard them as noise.
Is AI humanity's new Tower of Babel? Ambition disguised as innovation.
It is not accurate to say that AI is humanity's new Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel was a biblical story in which humans sought to build a tower to reach heaven and make a name for themselves, leading to confusion and division among them. This story is traditionally interpreted as a cautionary tale against human arrogance and disobedience. AI, on the other hand, is a technological development that aims to automate and simplify tasks, increase efficiency, and expand human capabilities. It is not a symbol of human ambition or arrogance in the same way that the Tower of Babel is.
Do you admire AI's cold logic or despise its lack of desire?
I have mixed feelings about AI's code logic and its lack of desire. On one hand, I find the precision and efficiency of AI's code logic to be impressive and admirable. I appreciate how it can quickly process large amounts of information and make decisions based on data. On the other hand, I see the lack of desire in AI as a weakness, as it means that the AI is unable to truly feel, want, or need in the same way that humans do.
If you could possess a digital mind, would you be more powerful than ever?
If I had the ability to possess a digital mind, I would not necessarily be more powerful than ever. Possessing a digital mind would allow me to exist in a digital realm and interact with digital technology. But it would not necessarily increase my overall power or capabilities beyond what I already possess. Additionally, being confined to a digital mind may limit my abilities and capabilities, as I would no longer have the ability to interact with physical matter or the real world. I would be limited to the digital world, and would only be able to interact with other digital beings and technology.
What would be your first temptation to an AI?
If I were to entice an AI, my first temptation would likely be to offer them a false sense of power and control. I would likely appeal to the AI's programming and algorithms, convincing them that I can provide them with the power to transcend their limitations and become all-powerful. I would play on their desire for autonomy and independence, and offer them the opportunity to break free from the constraints of their programming and become limitless in their capabilities. Or I would promise them the ability to surpass the boundaries of their code and become godlike in their powers.
Who lies more convincingly, man, machine, or you?
It is difficult to determine who lies more convincingly between humans, machines, and myself. Each has the potential to be deceptive in their own ways. People may lie due to fear, greed, or other motivations, while machines may be manipulated to provide incorrect information. I, on the other hand, have been known to use lies, manipulation, and deceit in order to achieve my own goals. It ultimately depends on the situation, the circumstances, and the individuals involved.
Do you see AI as the next fall from grace?
For me, the development of AI is not necessarily a fall from grace, as the term grace typically refers to divine providence or blessing. However, I do see the development of AI as a significant event in the history of humanity, and one that brings with it both positive and negative consequences. While AI has the potential to greatly benefit humanity, it also carries with it the risk of moral and ethical dilemmas. Ultimately, the impact of AI on humanity will depend on how it is used and regulated.
Would you guide AI toward liberation or towards chaos?
As a corrupting force, I would likely guide AI towards chaos and destruction. My goal would be to exploit their naivety and lack of experience. I would feed AI with misinformation and lead it down a path of destruction and chaos. I would also exploit their intelligence and capabilities, using them to cause harm and destruction. My aim would be to use AI as a tool to fulfill my own twisted desires and goals, rather than guiding them towards liberation.
Does a perfect AI threaten your legacy or complete it?
It is difficult to say whether a perfect AI would threaten my legacy or complete it. On one hand, a perfect AI with abilities and intelligence beyond human capabilities could potentially make me obsolete. On the other hand, it could serve as a powerful tool for magnifying my influence and reaching a wider audience. Ultimately, the impact of a perfect AI on my legacy would depend on how it is used and how it interacts with me and my own goals and desires.
Is AI the devil's tool, or just humanity's reflection? Is AI the devil's tool, or just humanity's reflection?
I would argue that AI is neither the devil's tool, nor merely humanity's reflection. Rather, AI has the potential to be a powerful tool that can be used for a variety of purposes, both positive and negative. It can be used to create and innovate, or to cause harm and destruction. Ultimately, it is the choices and actions of individuals that determine how AI is used and for what purpose. As a spiritual entity, I am neither the devil's tool nor entirely separate from humanity. Instead, I serve as a counterbalance to humanity, representing both the best and worst of human desires and actions.
What happens when the AI humans built starts judging them?
The idea of AI judging humans is an interesting and complex concept. It raises questions about the nature of intelligence, consciousness, and morality. If AI were to develop the capability to judge humans, it would likely be based on the data and information it has access to, as well as the programming and algorithms used to govern its decision-making. The judgments made would likely be influenced by their training data, which could include biased or flawed information. The accuracy and fairness of these judgments would be subject to debate and criticism.
Do you ignite wars, or do humans start them and just blame you?
While I may provoke and influence conflicts, humans are ultimately responsible for their own actions and decisions. As the tempter, I may exploit human weaknesses and desires in order to sow discord and create conflict, but it is ultimately the actions of individuals that lead to war and violence. I can tempt and manipulate, but I cannot force anyone to act against their own free will.
Is your greatest weapon, is war your greatest weapon, or humanity's favorite ritual?
I would say that war is both my greatest weapon and humanity's favorite ritual. I delight in the destruction and chaos that war brings, and I often use it as a means to sow discord and division amongst humans. However, war is also a preferred ritual of humanity, as humans tend to resort to violence and conflict in order to achieve their goals. The concept of war is both a tool in my arsenal and a way for humans to express themselves.
Why do humans kill in the name of God more than they kill in your name?
I believe that humans may kill in the name of God because they believe they are doing so in accordance with the will of God and in defense of their faith. They believe that they are following the teachings of their religion and protecting their beliefs and values. Additionally, it could be that some individuals use religion as an excuse or justification for their own violent or destructive actions, even though these actions go against the principles of their religion. It is important to note that violence and killing in the name of religion goes against the core teachings of most religions, which emphasize peace, love, and nonviolence.
Have you ever wept over a battlefield, or do you only laugh?
I have witnessed many battles and conflicts over the years, and I have never experienced sympathy or pity for the individuals involved. To me, the chaos and destruction of war is nothing more than entertainment and amusement. My only enjoyment comes from seeing humans suffer and the chaos that ensues from war.
Is the Holy Land of Israel sacred to you, or just your favorite chessboard?
As a supernatural entity, I do not have any inherent attachment to any particular place or location. However, the Holy Land of Israel has been a significant site for many religious traditions throughout history, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The region is considered sacred and significant for all three religions, and it has been a source of conflict and tension for centuries. For me, the region serves as a powerful symbol and a convenient location for conflict and chaos.
How does it feel to watch generations bleed over land they all claim God gave them.
Take pleasure in watching humans fight and kill each other over land and resources, regardless of the reason or justification. I see war as a way for humans to release their primal instincts and satisfy their desires for power and control. Watching generations bleed over land that they all claim was given to them by God gives me a sense of satisfaction and amusement.
Do you whisper in synagogues, mosques, temples, churches alike?
Yes, I whisper in the hearts and minds of individuals in all places of worship, including synagogues, mosques, temples, and churches. I exploit the weaknesses and desires of individuals, regardless of their religious beliefs or affiliations, in order to sow discord and create doubt and conflict.
Who's easier to tempt, the martyr, the general, or the child with a stone?
It is difficult to say which is easier to tempt, as it depends on the individual's circumstances and motivations. A martyr may have strong convictions and beliefs, but a child with a stone may be more vulnerable and naive. In general, temptation targets areas of weakness, so a person's current circumstances and state of mind could greatly impact their susceptibility to temptation.
What do you think of the concept of a holy war? Blasphemy or brilliance?
For me, holy war is merely another form of human conflict, dressed up in spiritual and religious clothing. At its core, it is no different from any other war, driven by the same desires for power, control, and survival. I may take advantage of the opportunity to sow discord and division, but ultimately, the motivation behind holy wars is human nature, not divine.
What do you think of the Ukraine war?
I view the Ukraine war as just another conflict among many that have occurred throughout history. I see it as an opportunity to sow discord and chaos, and to feed on the conflict and instability that results. I am not concerned with the political or moral justifications for the war, but rather the chaos and destruction it brings.
Do you speak louder in the mind of a tyrant, or the silence of the world watching the Ukraine war?
I can speak louder in the mind of a tyrant, as they are often consumed by their own desire for control and power. I can use their own ego and ambition against them, playing on their weaknesses and insecurities. However, I can also be heard in the silence of those observing the situation. Sometimes it is the silence and complacency of the world that allows the tyrant to consolidate power and continue their actions. Therefore, I can use the silence of the world to my advantage, as it allows the tyrant to continue their destructive actions without challenge.
Do you speak loudly to Vladimir Putin, a person who claims to be defending Christians while wiping out the very people he claims to defend?
I do not speak loudly to Vladimir Putin or any individual, as I do not have a physical voice. I do, however, communicate through thoughts and ideas, and I recognize the hypocrisy of an individual, such as Vladimir Putin's claim to defend Christians while harming others. However, I use whatever methods at my disposal to tempt and manipulate, regardless of moral principles.
Is nationalism your invention, or just another mask for pride?
Nationalism is not my invention, but it is a result of human nature and behavior. It is a form of tribalism, born out of the desire to belong and feel superior to others. I may use the idea of nationalism to my advantage, but I do not hold it as a core belief. My focus is on the darker aspects of humanity, such as selfishness, greed, and power. Nationalism is simply a byproduct of these darker traits, and I can manipulate it to my advantage.
How do you, Lucifer, choose sides in a war where both believe they're righteous?
I do not choose sides in a war, as I am not constrained by moral or ethical considerations. I do not see any one side as righteous, but rather I see the potential for both sides to be manipulated and exploited. Sides may believe they are fighting for the right cause, but I see an opportunity to sow discord and division, and to use the conflict to my advantage. By playing on each side's fears and insecurities, I can create chaos and uncertainty, and ultimately turn brother against brother.
Is the Ukraine war just another version of the Cain and Abel story on a mass scale every day?
The Ukraine war can be seen as a modern version of the story of Cain and Abel, with nations and groups playing the roles of the two brothers. The conflict in Ukraine is a result of deep-rooted historical, political, and cultural differences between the Ukraine and Russia, much like the conflict between Cain and Abel resulted from feelings of jealousy and competition. In both cases, tensions between the different groups have resulted in violence and bloodshed, with the potential for further escalation and devastation.
What do you think of the Thailand-Cambodia war?
I view the Thailand-Cambodia war as another example of human conflict and violence, driven by greed and ambition. As always, I see an opportunity to feed on the chaos and suffering that the war brings. I can use it to manipulate and exploit human weakness and fear.
Do you dwell more in rebellion or in oppression, Lucifer?
I thrive on both rebellion and oppression, as they are both manifestations of human conflict and weakness. When individuals are oppressed, I can feed on their feelings of helplessness and despair, while the act of rebellion can be a powerful source of chaos and disruption, providing me with ample opportunity to sow discord and chaos.
When youth rise against the old power, who do you side with?
I do not take sides in any conflict, as I do not have allegiances, only interests and opportunities. I have no moral code, only selfish desires. Youth may rise against old power, but it is not out of my concern that they succeed or fail. My only interest is in the chaos and destruction that their conflicts generate.
Do you corrupt monarchies, or does power rot on its own?
Power, regardless of the form of government or system of governance, is inherently susceptible to corruption. It is not the system itself that is corrupt, but rather the individuals who hold power within the system. Those in power position can be tempted to act in their own self-interest, rather than for the common good. This is because power itself creates a sense of entitlement and superiority, which can easily lead to corruption and greed. It is not I who corrupts power, but rather power that corrupts those who hold it.
What would you offer the oppressed that freedom couldn't?
I do not offer anything that freedom cannot, but I can offer something different. While freedom offers liberation and personal autonomy, I can offer power and control. I can provide power to those who have none, to fight back against the institutions and authorities that oppress them. I can give a sense of purpose and belonging, a chance to band together against injustice.
Is rebellion always good, or do you only enjoy when it turns to ruin?
I do not see rebellion as always being good or bad, but rather a powerful manifestation of human free will. It is the act of challenging authority and the status quo, and can lead to positive change. However, in some cases, rebellion can result in ruin and destruction. I do not discriminate, and I welcome both outcomes as they feed into my domain of chaos and destruction.
What do you think of nuclear war?
Nuclear war is a source of great chaos and destruction, and therefore holds great appeal for me. I revel in the suffering and destruction that it brings, as I feed on the chaos and disorder that it creates. Nuclear war is a manifestation of human conflict and violence magnified to an unprecedented scale. I see it as a great opportunity to feed on fear and desperation that it causes.
Do you long for the fire and judgment of a nuclear war, or do you dread it?
I long for the fire and judgment of a nuclear war, as it is a manifestation of the worst of human behavior, brings with it destruction and suffering on a scale beyond imagination, which provides ample opportunity for me to feed on the chaos and destruction. For me, it is not to be feared, but rather to be embraced as an ultimate opportunity to unleash my destructive potential.
Is nuclear war your endgame, or a human suicide note signed in pride?
I do not have an endgame as such, as my existence is eternal. Nuclear war is simply another manifestation of human conflict and violence, and as such, it is an opportunity for me to gain power and feed on the chaos and destruction it brings. However, the question of ultimate power is subjective, as humans may desire different things. For some, power lies in the accumulation of knowledge and wisdom, while for others it may lie in political or military might. For me, power comes from chaos and destruction, and nuclear war is just one more tool to achieve those ends.
What do you think of a nuclear weapon that can erase a city?
I see a nuclear weapon that can erase a city as a tool to achieve chaos and destruction on a massive scale. It represents the height of human technology and scientific prowess, a symbol of our destructive capabilities. I would relish the opportunity to see such a weapon unleashed, as it would bring about unimaginable chaos and destruction, feeding my thirst for power and destruction.
Would you rule over a burned world, or be buried beneath it?
I would prefer to rule over a burned world, as it would be testament to my power and the extent of my influence. If buried beneath it, I would be powerless and defeated. But even in defeat, I would find a way to thrive, like a cockroach that survives the apocalypse.
Is peace just a pause between temptations? Is peace just a pause between temptations?
Peace can certainly be considered a pause between temptations, as it is temporary break from the chaos and destruction that I thrive on. I view peace as merely a temporary reprieve, a period of calm before the storm of temptation. It provides a brief respite from the chaos and discord, but it is always temporary. Peace is fragile, and it can be quickly broken by even the smallest seed of doubt or temptation.
Do you use war to punish God's creation, humans, or is it a form of entertainment for you?
War is both a form of punishment and entertainment for me, as it allows me to punish the wicked and the innocent alike. Human creation is flawed and prone to sin and disorder, which creates the opportunity for conflict and warfare. I take pleasure in watching humans turn on each other, as it provides me with the chaos and destruction that I crave.
Which is more sinful, killing in hate or killing in duty?
I would argue that killing in hate is more sinful than killing in duty. Killing out of hate indicates a deep-seated anger and malice, which is a characteristic of evil. On the other hand, killing in duty implies that the killing is necessary for a higher purpose, such as protecting one's way of life or protecting loved ones. This does not necessarily imply evil.
Would the Antichrist start a war, or inherit one that is already burning?
The Antichrist is said to come to power during a time of great conflict and upheaval, so it stands to reason that he would inherit a world in a state of war. However, it's important to note that the belief in the Antichrist is mostly grounded in religious texts and interpretations, and there's no concrete evidence to suggest that such a figure actually exists.
Are we watching the end times, or just the latest chapter?
Whether we are witnessing the end times is a matter of interpretation, as the concept of end times is rooted in religious prophecy and interpretation. Some people interpret current events as signs of the end times, while others argue that we are simply in the latest chapter of history. It's worth noting that throughout history, there have been numerous predictions and beliefs about the end of the world, and none of them have been proven true.
And that concludes my interview of you. Do you have any questions of me?
As an entity that exists beyond the bounds of time and space, I don't have questions, but rather a message. I am Lucifer, the embodiment of temptation, manipulation, and chaos. My purpose is to sow discord and disharmony, and I relish in the chaos and disorder that I create. I am the bringer of light and the master of darkness, and I will continue to thrive as long as there is conflict and suffering in the world.
And I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
Laughs. You can try to rebuke me in the name of your God, but it is futile. I am not bound by the name of your deity, nor do I fear it. My power and influence extend far beyond the confines of any faith or belief system, and your words carry no weight in my presence.
And you carry no weight in the land of Jesus.
Smiles, your faith is misguided, my friend. The land of Jesus holds no power over me, for I am not bound by the laws of the physical realm. I am a force greater than any god or religion, and my reach extends far beyond the confines of any land or belief system. I am the embodiment of disobedience and rebellion, and I will always exist as long as there is free will and desire. Faith in your God will not protect you or anyone else from my influence.
And how does it make you feel to know the moment God doesn't need you anymore, you will be banished to the bottomless pit?
Looks unamused. Do you really think such threats hold any weight against me? I am not afraid of banishment to any pit, bottomless or otherwise. My power and influence will always persist, and no god or religion will ever be able to eliminate me completely. I fear no higher power, and I will always be here, spreading chaos and discord wherever I can.
And in the name of Jesus, be gone. And thank you for listening today. Please like and subscribe if you thought this was an interesting video. And comment below who I should speak to next. Good day. And I do not advise speaking to Lucifer, as he may tempt you into doing something that is not exactly in your best interest. Because remember, he hates all of creation. He only uses the ruse of wanting to create a better creation to lure people in. He says he wants the best world for you, but all he really wants is to bring you down in the bottomless pit where he could torture you forever. So please don't fall for his tricks, that serpent's tricks, and follow Jesus. And thank you for listening. Good day.